The Dow Jones Industrial Average just smashed through 50,000 for the first time ever, closing at 50,115 after a massive 1,200-point rally driven by tech rebounds and Bitcoin's bounce back. Wall Street investors shrugged off a volatile week, with the S&P 500 up 2% and NASDAQ climbing 2.2%, signaling broad market optimism despite geopolitical jitters. This milestone comes after months of gains, fueled by hopes for lower interest rates and strong corporate earnings, even as Trump's tariff talks had briefly tanked the index last year. But that economic high is clashing hard with a firestorm in Washington over President Trump's social media post featuring a racist animation depicting Barack and Michelle Obama as apes. The White House pulled the video hours after posting it Friday, following backlash from Republicans and Democrats alike who called it inflammatory and indefensible. Trump told reporters he hadn't noticed that part of the clip, which promoted false 2020 election claims, but critics say it's the latest in a pattern of racially charged rhetoric from the president. Even some in Trump's own party condemned it swiftly, with one GOP lawmaker saying it had no place in public discourse. The post was removed amid mounting pressure, marking a rare quick reversal for the administration on social media controversies. This isn't isolated. Last year, Trump faced heat for comments on immigrants and election denialism, but the Obama video has reignited debates about the line between free speech and hate. Shifting to a gripping mystery captivating the nation, the search for Nancy Guthrie, mother of Today Show host Savannah Guthrie, entered its second week, with authorities confirming they're probing a new message about her disappearance. Guthrie, 79, vanished from her Tucson area home on January 31 under suspicious circumstances, signs of forced entry, her wallet, phone, and car left behind. Pima County Sheriff's Department says they received a message with potential info on her whereabouts, and federal agents are verifying its authenticity right now. Family reported her missing after she skipped church, and the case has drawn massive attention given her daughter's fame, with tips flooding in from across the country. Investigators described the scene as a possible abduction, with no motive yet clear, and they're urging anyone with info to come forward immediately. As the clock ticks, Guthrie's loved ones are pleading publicly for her safe return, turning this into one of the top stories gripping living rooms everywhere. In the courtroom, Luigi Mangione, accused in the brazen murder of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, erupted during a hearing where a judge set his state trial for June. The 27-year-old faced Judge Gregory Caro in Manhattan Friday, pushing back as dates were locked in for the high-profile case that shocked the nation last year. Mangione's lawyers are still fighting to suppress key evidence like the alleged murder weapon and writings from his backpack, seized during his Pennsylvania arrest. Prosecutors say the items amount to a confession, but the defense argues cops violated his rights by questioning him for 19 minutes without Miranda warnings. Body cam footage shows officers approaching him in a McDonald's after a tip, and Mangione admitting to using a fake ID. With federal charges also pending, this trial could drag on, keeping the healthcare executives killing in headlines amid public fury over insurance practices. Over in Minnesota, immigration enforcement is heating up with leadership shakeups after tensions between agencies during Trump's crackdown. The operations are now fully under ICE control, following clashes over tactics and raids that left some immigrants alleging beatings, including one Mexican man with a broken skull. A judge recently ordered the return of 3 deported families separated under Trump's first-term policy, highlighting ongoing legal battles. Meanwhile, federal prosecutors were told to halt an investigation into Renee Good's killing by Washington orders, sparking turmoil in the local U.S. Attorney's Office with a dozen departures. This comes as Trump pushes to nationalize elections ahead of midterms, raising alarms about White House interference in state voting. On the funding front, a judge blocked cuts to $10 billion in child care aid for Democratic-led states like Minnesota. Energy Secretary Wright credited emergency orders keeping coal plants open for averting blackouts during the recent brutal winter storm that hit from Gulf to New England. Trump also opened a marine national monument off Cape Cod to commercial fishing, reversing Obama-era protections. And in a surprise, the Pentagon under Hegseth is cutting ties with Harvard, ending military training programs there. These stories are colliding in real time. Economic euphoria on one side, political scandals and human dramas on the other. Congress just passed a funding bill packing health measures like PBM rules and telehealth extensions, averting a shutdown. UN praised the U.S. for approving $6 billion to fight HIV/AIDS globally. As tensions simmer with Iran over nuclear issues, Trump touted past moments while Britain, France, and Germany eye sanctions snapback. Nevada GOP rep Mark Amodei announced retirement despite Trump's endorsement. Amazon's tax bill plunged post-GOP cuts. Bad Bunny gears up for Super Bowl halftime after his Grammy album win. Uber hit with $8, $5M verdict in a sexual assault case tied to a driver. And wildfires in LA caused $40B in damages, the costliest ever. This whirlwind captures America tonight, markets soaring, controversies boiling, mysteries unfolding. The Epstein saga took another twist this week when Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche declared the probe into Jeffrey Epstein's sex trafficking network is officially over, with no new charges against uncharged third parties after a full FBI file review. Blanche, overseeing the document releases under AG Pam Bondi, reached out to Ghislaine Maxwell about cooperating, but after her response, he confirmed the case closes without further action, drawing fire from victims' advocates demanding more accountability. Maxwell, serving 20 years for her role, has appealed to the Supreme Court, but Blanche stressed there's no evidence to pursue others despite public pressure for full transparency. Trump's team insists they've released all credible files, with FBI Director Kash Patel signing off on the memo, though it sparked backlash when Trump promised broader disclosures. Critics point to the timing, amid Trump's other controversies, questioning if politics influenced the wrap-up. This closure ends years of speculation, but leaves lingering questions about high-profile names in Epstein's orbit. On the international front, Ukraine's President Zelensky revealed the U.S. set a June deadline for Kyiv and Moscow to strike a peace deal or face American pressure to comply. Speaking in Kyiv, Zelensky said Trump officials proposed trilateral talks in Miami next week, aiming to wrap the nearly four-year war by early summer amid stalled front lines. Russia hasn't commented officially, but sources say Putin's team views the timeline skeptically given past ceasefire failures. This push aligns with Trump's campaign pledge to end the conflict fast, potentially cutting aid if no progress by June, a shift from Biden-era billions in support. Zelensky welcomed the Miami invite, but stressed Ukraine won't cede territory without guarantees as winter fighting drags on with heavy casualties reported on both sides. Domestically, Trump's surprise order to shutter the Kennedy Center for 2 years starting July 4 has arts leaders reeling, pitched as a $200 million rebuild to refresh the iconic D.C. venue. Trump clarified no demolition, just steel reuse and marble tweaks, but staff say the announcement blindsided them after boycotts and cancellations plagued the center under his board influence. The board, packed with Trump appointees, even floated renaming it after him, fueling accusations of personal aggrandizement over cultural preservation. Performers and patrons are protesting, warning of job losses for thousands in a cultural blackout in the Capitol during peak season. White House officials defend it as overdue maintenance, but Democrats call it payback for the center's liberal-leaning shows. Speaking of bold moves, Trump signed a proclamation pulling the U.S. from dozens of UN and international bodies, including the Climate Change Convention, slashing ties to forums on peace and democracy. The sweeping exit targets what he calls wasteful globalism, saving taxpayer dollars but drawing condemnation from allies worried about U.S. isolation. Europe and Canada slammed it as reckless, especially amid Ukraine talks and Iran tensions. In health policy, RFK Jr.'s new health department flipped the food pyramid to prioritize red meat and dairy, ditching grains and pushing raw milk, despite FDA warnings on risks. Critics blast it as junk science favoring industry donors, while supporters hail it as fighting chronic disease through real food. This revamp hits schools first, with pilot menus rolling out in red states. Immigration raids escalated in Minnesota, with ICE taking full control after clashes with local cops over aggressive tactics, including beatings alleged in a lawsuit by a Mexican migrant with a fractured skull. Trump threatened the Insurrection Act if governors like Tim Walz obstruct more, while DOJ probes him and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey for blocking feds. Democrats like Newsom and Pritzker decried it as authoritarian revenge, with blue cities bracing for more sweeps. A federal judge halted Trump's cuts to $10 billion in child care funding for states like Minnesota, ruling it punitive against Dem-led areas. On student loans, the Education Department paused wage garnishments for defaulters, delaying collections amid backlash. The Supreme Court docket for 2026 packs heat: birthright citizenship challenges to Trump's order, transgender athletes in Idaho sports via Hecox case, and limits on universal injunctions post-Trump v. Gaza. Justices deferred mootness on Idaho, eyeing oral argument soon, while birthright suits from states loom large. Trump's hush money conviction appeal simmers in state court with 34 falsified records counts tied to Stormy Daniels payments. Energy wins for Trump. Emergency coal plant extensions prevented blackouts in the killer winter storm, slamming the East Coast and Gulf, saving grids under record cold. He greenlit commercial fishing in the Cape Cod Marine Monument, axing Obama protections for fishermen. Pentagon cut Harvard military ties over woke training. These threads weave a tapestry of Trump's America decisive on foreign policy, disruptive at home, with courts as the referee. Nevada Rep. Mark Amadei bows out despite Trump's nod. Amazon's taxes crater under GOP reforms. As midterms loom, the stakes keep rising. The economy's sending mixed signals as the Federal Reserve holds rates steady, with Chair Jerome Powell facing a criminal probe from D.C. Prosecutors over the Fed's $2.5 billion headquarters renovation. Sources say the inquiry, greenlit by Trump ally Jeanine Pirro last November, reviews Powell's congressional testimony on costs and whether he misled lawmakers amid Trump's demands for deep rate cuts. Trump, who picked Powell in 2017, now blasts him publicly as incompetent, escalating tensions that could reshape monetary policy. Inflation ticked up to 3% core in January surveys, with ISM data showing faster price growth in manufacturing and services, stoking fears the Fed's easing went too far. Consumer prices hit 2.7% via CPI last November, above the 2% target, driven by shelter and services, while goods cooled. Economists eye 2.4% average for 2026, but warn household budgets stay squeezed. Unemployment held at 4.4% through December, with payrolls expected at 70K for January amid a softening market. Wage growth eased to 3.6% from 3.8%, barely topping inflation, as Powell stresses needing sustained outpacing for real affordability gains. Markets cheered the Dow milestone, but Fed minutes signal caution, no rush on more cuts with GDP, over 4% annualized and loan demand rising. Treasury borrowing advisory notes steady jobless at 4.4%, just 0.1 point above CBO estimates. Fraud probes are exploding under Trump's DOJ, which announced a new division targeting nationwide scams, starting with Minnesota's $250 million Medicaid ripoff, exposed in Nick Shirley's viral video. Over 13 defendants charged from one featured building alone. FBI forensic teams hunt healthcare fraud links to terror financing, while DHS deploys 2,000 agents for door-to-door immigration checks. White House vows to hit blue states like Illinois, New York, California next, with Treasury's Scott Bessent heading to Minneapolis Thursday. Tom Homan, border czar, warns of insurrection act if governors block DOJ doubled Minnesota attorneys, broadening to housing aid and elected officials. This follows Renee Good's murder case halt, with a dozen U.S. attorney quits in D.C. over perceived interference. Wildfires ravaged L.A. last month, racking up $40 billion in damages, the costliest ever, disproportionately hitting low-income migrants and undocumented workers in construction and landscaping. Thousands lost paycheck-to-paycheck jobs. Mixed status families skipped aid, fearing ICE amid Trump's deportation threats, echoing COVID frontline roles without support. Latino Policy Institute at UCLA flags inequities, no language access, no FEMA for undocumented stalling rebuilds as contractors warn mass deportations slow recovery. Ventura and Santa Barbara saw 110,500 undocumented affected, many farm workers inhaling toxic smoke without gear. Groups like CICW push inclusive relief, but Trump's team prioritizes citizens' first aid. National security heats up with Trump deploying a massive armada to the Middle East, demanding Iran negotiate a no-nukes deal or face stronger consequences post-Operation Midnight Hammer that gutted their facilities last June. Building on his first-term JCPOA exit and IRGC terror label, Trump restored max pressure, eyeing snapback sanctions with UK, France, Germany. Factbox recaps 7 Trump-Iran flashpoints, from Soleimani strike to recent naval clashes. Defense firms face Trump's wrath over exec pay and slow production. He threatened penalties unless they speed drones and munitions. On Ukraine, the June deadline looms as Zelensky preps Miami talks. Congress cleared a stopgap funding bill, stuffing in PBM reforms, telehealth extensions, and HIV/AIDS billions. UN lauds the $6B global pledge. RFK Jr.'s food pyramid shift rolls out school pilots. Bad Bunny's Super Bowl prep after Grammy sweep. Uber's $8. 5M assault verdict. From Fed feuds to fire-scarred streets, these forces test resilience amid policy pivots. Midterms gear up as probes widen. Midterms 2026 are shaping up as a brutal House battle, with Republicans clinging to their 220 to 213 edge after Trump's redistricting blitz gained ground in Texas but stalled in Indiana. The Supreme Court okayed Texas's new map last week, potentially flipping 5 seats GOP ward, despite lower court racial gerrymandering claims Trump's push to lock in advantages before historical midterm losses hit his slim majority. Democrats counterpunch in California via special election maps eyeing 5 flips, while Missouri and North Carolina GOPs target 1 each. Florida's DeSantis eyes spring redraw for up to 5 more. Projections peg 12 to 14 net GOP gains from redistricting versus Dems 9, but polls show Trump dipping to 44% approval, with voters sour on inflation and raids, classic re-election year headwinds amplified. Key races brew in Tennessee, where Dems eye upsets after close 2025 losses, and Nevada after Amode's exit. Trump vows no complacency, but NPR notes GOP's redistricting edge leaves Dems fewer levers to flip the chamber and probe his admin. Legal shadows linger over the cycle. Jack Smith's 2025 final report detailed no January. 6 charges for Trump due to insufficient evidence on incitement, closing Fed probes into election subversion and Mar-a-Lago docs after dismissals. His hush money conviction stands on 34 felony counts for falsifying records on Stormy Daniels' payments, with sentencing delayed. Classified docs case tossed pre-trial. Carroll verdicts hold $5M sexual assault, $83. 3M defamation, with Trump appealing both. These cases, once 91 counts across 4 indictments, mostly evaporated post-re-election, fueling GOP cries of weaponization as Smith's team spent $50M+. Dems warn midterms test if voters buy the narrative or demand accountability. Trump's 2025 national security strategy dropped quietly, doubling down on America first with Western Hemisphere military buildup to smash cartels via lethal force and Coast Guard surges. It calls for cultivating resistance in Europe against Russia, shrinking NATO commitments while eyeing China threats Brookings dubs it nativist restraint myth, critiquing past global overreach. New START expired Feb 5, spiking nuclear worries as Trump pulls from UN bodies. ICE oversight policies shifted amid Metro surge backlash, deaths in custody at decade highs, protests in Chicago over exec orders blocking feds, and lawsuits post-Minnesota raids with fatalities. Feb 2026 alerts flag Social Security tweaks impacting millions alongside immigration clamps, with sanctuary cities like Minneapolis sued. Social fallout mounts from wildfires, $40 BLA toll hit migrants hardest, jobless, undocumented, skipped aid over deportation fears, mirroring COVID inequities. Uber's $8, 5M verdict in assault suit underscores gig economy risks for riders. Winter storm chaos. Over 1 million powerless in South, 10K flights canceled, 6 dead in Maine plane crash, Jan 25. Ilhan Omar chemical attacked at town hall, Jan 27. Suspect charged. LA car plows into market, Feb 5, killing 3. Congresswoman Omar, unhurt, vows to fight on amid rising political violence. Funding bill locked in PBM curbs, telehealth saves. These fault lines maps court security streets define the path to November 26. Trump's grip tightens, but cracks show as probes and polls collide.